Hi, and welcome to my short talk this evening. Just having a brief look at why I think the vegan community would benefit from a deeper understanding of intersectionality. Now, just to add a bit of context to the short talk, in the blog that associates with this vlog, there's some references, some links which I'd ask you to refer to give a bit of context. But this specifically refers to a blog that was published by the Vegan Society quite recently by Julia Feliz, which was subsequently taken down. And there's been some discussion about this and about the definition that the Vegan Society, or rather the statement they put out regarding intersectionality. I just want to say here, obviously at this point, that I've got a lot of friends in the Vegan Society, and I love the Vegan Society. I've been a lifelong member, have a lot of very, very good friends there, and so very much I want to be helping here. But possibly some people might go, oh, this is a bit divisive or something, but we have to be clear here that if we're going to address issues of systemic racism, systemic sexism, and other oppression, these divisions have already happened. And what we're trying to do here is address them so that we can bring people back together and not see further divide. So, whereas obviously I have a lot of friends in the Vegan Society, I'm also really feeling the pain, the frustration, and the exhaustion of some of my, especially some of the female voices of colour, the vegan voices of colour that are out there working, especially in Facebook groups and blogging. And yeah, we need to address this, and white people, especially like myself, need to do some of this work. And so, with that in mind, I'm just going to draw attention to why this is really important. Again, I would ask people to refer to the original blog that Julia wrote. And in it there's a quote from Shashi K, who describes vegan spaces as rife with their own forms of oppression. And that veganism and its claims of anti-oppression, justice and compassion are difficult to make convincing to non-vegans of colour when they can see the racism, sexism, ableism, transphobia, etc. a mile off. Okay, so this is serious. These are serious problems that vegans of colour are articulating within our own communities. And if you're one of these people who goes, well, I don't really see racism, or I don't really see sexism, may I suggest that you listen to the voices of people who are articulating the very oppression that they are enduring. And this is real, this is real. Otherwise we wouldn't be hearing these voices. So with that in mind, it's really important that we do try and address these issues. I think when we're looking at intersectionality, it really helps to refer to Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw and her definition of intersectionality, because Dr. Crenshaw was the person who kind of formulated this framework, presented it, did the early work. And of course, although Dr. Crenshaw herself did clearly indicate that this work should be taken on and expanded upon to include other forms of oppression, nevertheless, we're also really clear that when we're talking intersectionality, it's really important to centre female people of colour in the discussion. And that's not only here with the Vegan Society and intersectionality, but also generally in intersectional groups on Facebook. It's really important to focus the voices of female vegans of colour, not to the exclusion of other voices, but to centre these voices and to really listen to these voices. Once we stray away from this, I think that's when it starts getting a bit messy and we lose the real understanding and nature of intersectionality. And of course there's some other really good resources. Again, I would highlight that if you want to really understand intersectionality, which is obviously a really good thing for a number of reasons, have a look at the resources, look at the people who are really understand intersectionality. You know, we're really lucky to have people like Dr. Breeze Harper in our communities, Julia Feliz, who are doing this work. Dr. Breeze Harper, especially with the Sister Vegan vlog, heartily recommend that, you know, go and have a look if you're not familiar with Dr. Harper's work. Likewise, Julia Feliz and her book about oppression and vegans and oppression, a number of essays. There's some other good resources. The Animal Rights Zone have fantastic podcasts, 25 podcasts around the themes of intersectionality. This brilliant book here, Circles of Compassion, has 19 essays, different voices around intersectionality. And indeed our own YouTube channel, where we've got something like 20 talks that were filmed at the Pro-Intersectional Summit in 2016. Again, some really good resources. So, you know, this is where the understanding of intersectionality starts, is listening to those voices of those people who experience this oppression daily and understand it. So, you know, with that in mind, just to say how important it is to centre female people of colour in this discussion. Just, you know, reminding ourselves of when the Vegan Society had issues 3 years ago with the sort of definition of veganism. And 3 years ago, you know, the Vegan Society, well, 1979, the Vegan Society clearly defined veganism really centering animals. And with the 1979 definition clearly accepted now as the definition for veganism, which clearly centers animals. And of course in 2014, with this campaign, the You Don't Have to Be Vegan campaign, this really moved the focus away from animals, took the centre away, and this caused a lot of problems. And I think, you know, to their credit, the Vegan Society really listened eventually, and now really focus non-human animals at the centre of their work. And I think that's perhaps part of their reluctance to want to back Julia and to really make a clear statement against oppression. But, you know, the Vegan Society have failed here with this statement, and they do need to address it. And I think the Vegan Society deserves some credit for bringing intersectionality into their agenda, but I think they need some further help. I think they would benefit from perhaps you know, an expert, consultant, somebody perhaps like Dr. Breeze Harper, who really does understand intersectionality, and perhaps, you know, could help and work with the Vegan Society. If the Vegan Society were to invite someone like Dr. Breeze or another expert to develop a framework that we can really all live with, and that, you know, really represents people of colour, because right now this doesn't, and we're really in danger of excluding a really large number of people of colour especially, and other minority and marginalised groups, you know, because we're not representing this fantastic framework as it should be, where it can really benefit everybody. You know, obviously I'm a white, speaking as a white male, you know, I don't really understand racism, because, you know, I don't have to wake up every day and not only encounter racism perhaps in the workplace or from individuals, or, you know, I see graffiti on the wall, or you know, messages, or just the way people look at me, you know, but also the systemic racism, you know, like getting blocked from jobs, or not getting access to jobs in the first place, or to housing, education, you know, treatment from perhaps the police or the authorities, or in the courts or in the prisons. You know, as a white person, I just do not face those daily realities. Okay, and obviously as a male, I don't face like those battles that our female colleagues have to deal with in terms of sexism in the workplace, and you know, not only again the individual sexism that had to face on a daily basis, but the systemic sexism that is still clearly here, you know. I mean, look, when we've got the director of the BBC department, the female director resigning in protest at the disparity in wages, when we're having to, you know, insist to all football clubs in the Premiership that, you know, you must have a BAME candidate when it comes up to senior management positions. You know, when we have to have the Me Too hashtag and have people, females, standing up and just say, we're just not having this anymore, you know, then we cannot say that there's no racism or sexism. Or, I don't see racism, I don't see sexism. And of course, there's many other isms that a lot of us are just not seeing and we're just not addressing. So I'm going to wrap up briefly, but just to underline that, you know, I am offering some help here. The Vegan Society, obviously a charity. The Vegan Society wanted to employ or, you know, employ the facilities of the work of what an expert. I would be happy to look at perhaps trying to cover the costs of that, you know, and not only to produce a really good statement that really helps define intersectionality, but also go further than that, produce some guidelines to work within an intersectional framework for people in the to work within, so that, you know, we don't have vegans of colour saying that they're finding like these spaces are rife with toxicity. You know, we need to own this, people, and especially white people, and especially white males. We need to own this, and we need to do some of this work, and not just leave our female vegans of colour to carry the burden of unpicking systemic racism and sexism. So yeah, that's the solution I'm offering. I'm open, you know, let's have some other solutions, let's open up the conversation and try and find solutions, work together to really make something that we can really be proud of, that really represents people all over the world. And I know that, you know, I understand why we want to centre non-vegans. I understand why we want to centre non-humans in the vegan discussion. You know, I really get that. But we have to remember that if we want to help animals, you know, we've got to work with people, because people are abusing animals. And if we want to centre animals, we need to centre people too. And this intersectional framework, you know, which is not a belief system. It is not some kind of ideology. It is not the same as atheism or in the same group. You know, this is a reality for people. This is oppression. This is systemic oppression affecting billions of people, and it's brutal. This is a reality. It's not a belief system, and it's offensive to many to suggest that it is. So, you know, we need to work together to put this right. We've got the ability, we've got the tools, we've got the resources, we've got the goodwill, we've got the understanding. We just need to do the work now. And, you know, then maybe we can avoid these things like, you know, what do we have this week? Like, you know, vegan pride, you know, co-opting pride. Fortunately, the people listened and put it right, but, you know, we could have avoided that by having a clear intersectional framework. You know, this is co-opting the Me Too hashtag for veganism. You know, no. You know, and an intersectional framework helps avoid that in the first place. So, I'm going to wrap up now, just to say, though, to leave you with this very famous quote that I would like to, you know, help us all focus on, because we may not be able to change all these things like systemic racism. We may not be able to help the whole world go vegan. But we can change ourselves, and we can take responsibility for ourselves, what we do, how we go on, and especially our understanding of racism, sexism and other isms. And let's use this fantastic tool of intersectionality, this framework, to unpick this oppression that is holding all of us, humans and animals, in states of oppression. And we can do that. Peace out.